Now that we're done with both the offices as well as the green room, it is time to move on to the cubicle space, which is the largest room of all. You're watching another episode of Speed Model. It is time to move on once again to a new room. This time is the cubicle room. Instead of building all the cubicles individually, what I've decided to do is to build a single cubicle and duplicate it multiple times over, using multiple instances of the array and mirror modifiers. This allows me to build a reusable base, so later on, I can focus only on the details that will be different from cubicle to cubicle. I built the cubicles in a typical shape, surrounded on all sides but with a small opening, occasionally switching the modifiers back on to see what the effect is. I eventually opt for a slightly different orientation on the cubicles, giving it a more varied look. With everything appropriately scaled and positioned, I move on to make sure that they are okay height-wise, making use of my two humanoid models as a guide. As you can see, it works perfectly. A human standing up could easily look over to the next cubicle, but a seated person would have sufficient wall in front of them. With that knowledge, I begin to build a little desk, once again guided by the height of the seated figure. I decided to add a little flair to the cubicle by adding a little glass panel to the top. Of course, the height of the cubicle walls have to be adjusted again as well. Once satisfied with the relative scale, I begin to duplicate the glass panel around on all sides. Next up is to begin coloring. I assigned materials to both the cubicle walls as well as the desk contained within. I opted to go for the plasticky desk look this time, since we've done way too many wooden desks. I also spent some time to tweak up the materials of the glass panels. It takes a few tries, but I eventually opt for Z transparent glass instead of ray traced ones, to save on rendering time. I tweak up the color of the cubicle and add a few more tiny meshes around the corners to add a further splash of contrasting colors. I also connect them across the center so they appear split down the middle. A quick test render at this point tells us we're on the right track. With that information, it is time to begin adding some more detail to the scene. I begin by adding a very typical drawer to the bottom of the desk. After some tweaks, I begin to cut out the individual drawers. This of course is a process you have seen me do countless times, so let's blaze past it. With the drawer in place, I pop into one of the offices to steal a swivel chair. I quickly rename it and duplicate it for every cubicle, taking care to give each a slightly different position and rotation to make the scene appear more organic. Next up, computers. I start with the screen and duplicate those over for every cubicle as well. You get the idea. I repeat the same process over and over again for keyboards, mice, and towers, giving every cubicle a computer. Another feature I decided to add was a little notice board. Some cubicles have them, some don't, and they all look different. That's how you make a room feel alive. Let's add some stationery. I model a pen from a cylinder. Being something I'd not done before, I had to make a lot of tweaks to make sure the scale was working okay. I give it a rounded top and a pointy tip like most pens are. Cutting a notch near the top, I extrude part of the pen body, which makes it look like one of those pocket clips you get on pens. After adding a splash of color and a little button at the top, well, we have a pretty convincing looking pen. All that's left to do will be to create a variety of said pens and to scatter them throughout the office. And that wraps up this episode. The cubicles are now nice and populated, meaning we can move on once again to another room. And there you have it. Doing something at the scale of the cubicle room was really quite different and honestly a little bit scary as well, but I'm glad we've actually powered through it. I'm glad it actually looks okay, despite the fact that the scale still isn't perfect. I don't know, I did a whole bunch of research. It seems that, when it comes to typical cubicle sizes, people seem to have very different ideas. And some of the larger ones really seem to be, much bigger than I expected it to be. So yeah, I settled for this. It seems to work okay with my scale models. so let's just pretend it's alright. That's all there is for this episode of Speed Model. Until next time, you're watching 0612 TV. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, consider checking out the rest of my work on my channel. Alternatively, you may be interested in the last season of Speed Model. If you'd like to show me some monetary support, I am on Patreon. You can find a link to my campaign in the video description. Of course, you can simply like this video or leave a comment. I'll be sure to respond as soon as I can. To keep in touch with my future uploads, do subscribe to this channel. And for even more updates, check out the official Twitter account for this channel at 0612TV. Thank you for your support.